There's one potential case that might signify an example of a hostile possession.
Yes, and not only that, and it's also an example of what we can call prenatal reincarnation, replacement reincarnation. That is, that it occurred, if my interpretation of this case is correct, it occurred when the mother was 6 months along in her pregnancy.
Yes. So
at the end of the second trimester, beginning of the third, when she interestingly became very sick. She suddenly became sick at the beginning of her third trimester, had not been sick up until that point. Yeah. The father of the boy who remembered the life of the previous person, the one who may have replaced a spirit who had been in the body up until that point, thought the boy had been born at a certain date. There's no birth certificate in this case, unfortunately, so we don't have a firm, definite birth date. But the father's memory of his birth placed it 3 months before the death of the person that the case subject later began to talk about. Right. And he said enough, is typical of these cases, for that person to be identified.
A past life identification. In other words, a solved case.
It became a solved case. And when the investigator, Antonia Mills in this case, the boy was born with birthmarks. We've talked about birthmarks before.
Yes, we've done a whole interview on birthmarks and the physical signs of
reincarnation. Yeah. So birthmarks are common in these cases.
Yes.
Well, the case subject of this particular case, Titu Singh, was born with a number of birthmarks, with a series of birthmarks on the back of his neck, and one on his forehead, and then another right behind his ear, which is actually a minor birth defect right behind the ear. And the family had assumed that these birthmarks were related to the previous person.
Yes.
But when Antonia Mills began to investigate the case, she went back and got hold of the autopsy report of the previous person, which showed the location of the death wounds. It turned out that he had been something of a gangster.
Yes.
And had been murdered by another gang member, by a member of a rival gang, who had shot him in the head.
Yes.
And at the location of one of the birthmarks that Tito had. And the bullet had exited behind his ear. Now, the birth family, the parents had not noticed the birthmark behind the ear. But when Antonia Mills noticed this, she went back to Titu, looked behind his ear, and sure enough, there was a bony protrusion there, right behind the ear, the earlobe, that would mark the exit wound for the bullet.
Right.
I mean, this is what we see in many cases of birthmarks related to a bullet, of gunshots. There's an entry and exit wound. If those were the entry and exit wounds, that left the other birthmarks on Titu unexplained. Now,
which led you to hypothesize there might have been another spirit in the body
that was
or
replaced.
in the fetus.
That's right. Now, if we accept the father's birth date that he gave for Titu, then then T2 must have taken possession of the body, and we know that we know the time of the death of the previous person.
Sure.
And that was around that time, exactly that time.
And the mother was getting ill at that time as
exactly
well.
That time. So the times line up very well.
So that's about as close as you can find in the actual case history literature of reincarnation that even remotely resembles a hostile possession.
A hostile takeover, right.
Yeah.
But it does depend on accepting the father's memory of T2's birthday, because we don't have a birth record of it.
Right. And probably a few other assumptions as well. So
right, but again, I mean, if we want to, we can take this case and take these assumptions, make them as hypotheses, and then see if later cases that are better supported match up, and then if they do, that would confirm the predictions that we make on the basis of this case.
I hope that people are viewing this video 50, 100 years from now, and that they can say, yes, Jim, we've done that.
I hope so too. That would be wonderful. Yes.